So now we're going to briefly look at India and its early moves into independence. As World War I ended, the British government and military were not as strong as they used to be. And with nationalist movements spreading across the globe, the British Empire could not maintain their grasp on all of its colonies. And India then would be one of the colonies that would see changes. Before we move into the specifics, I want to remind you how important India was to the British Empire. So many of the resources and products that come out of India are cornerstone items for the British industrial economy. And so Britain's not going to really want to give up all of its claim to India, and yet they made some promises to India. So let's see how that all came about. So after World War I, India would see a surge in nationalism that would lead to the idea of at least a partial independence. Great Britain had promised India more self-government in return for soldiers and money during World War I. After World War I, though, how this self-rule should look varied greatly depending on who you talk to. The British didn't want to give up all of their power and all of their influence in India because they didn't want to give up those resources. But the people of India really had this idea of this national pride and this concept of nationalism, and they were really pushing, or many of them were really pushing for independence. Yet many of these people, these Indians, did not see how a united India was a possibility because its people were so diversified. It's really important to remember how big India really is and how massive their population is. It is a subcontinent. So even though it might seem smaller on the globe, it is a subcontinent because it's so big and there's so many different kinds of people spread out in this land. So a lot of people didn't see how one India, meaning an entire nation of that subcontinent, was ever going to be able to find common ground and unite. But one person who thoroughly believed in this and would spend most of his life trying to make it happen would be Mohandas Gandhi. Gandhi would use nonviolence and passive resistance to garner support for a united, independent India. One of his most famous ways of protest was through hunger strikes. He was a highly respected individual among every side that you could that had a say in what was going on in India. So in 1935, Great Britain is going to allow India to elect representatives. So this gives them some self-governing power. Yet Britain is going to control things like defense and revenue. Revenue is just a fancy word for money. So that means they're still in control of those resources and still have a lot of say in the money systems that would make up India's economy.